let's talk about the adoption side for where we're at currently. So we are seeing drone adoption across many industries. I know telecommunications was one that I came from, and also the surveying side, architecture, engineering, obviously real estate photography, critical infrastructure, oil and gas, yada yada yada. Like the industry is rapidly advancing with more and more drones being utilized and adopted. Now, let's talk about the solar industry. Where are we at today, and where do you see as the biggest opportunity for growth?
That's actually a really good question. So yeah,
Okay.
drones are being utilized a little bit in solar. I would definitely say infrared thermal drones are being even some plane assets as far as I know FPNL is using the imagery is very, very prevalent in the large scale, the utility scale and commercial solar systems, because those asset owners, the owners of the big fields of solar are investment firms, are investors. They want to make sure that their long term investment is continuously producing the results and the return on their investment that they were shown to begin with. So, utilizing drones versus the old school way, which with big solar fields, you would have to, if it wasn't with a drone or an aerial asset, there would be somebody going around to each bank of string of panels doing a electroluminescence testing, basically making sure that the system is working when there is sun out there. Okay. Or a IV curve, basically seeing the watts and the voltages on the curve of the electricity. And also going around with a handheld thermal camera to every single panel, make sure that they're all working. A drone or a UAV asset can do what would be weeks or months of work by a team in minutes. So the biggest side of this is the thermal UAV drones taking a lot of images, thermal and visual, of those solar systems and looking for differences in thermal temperatures along the array and matching the anomalies as far as strings being out, bunch of solar panels at once, one panel being out, or just one little set of cells in that solar panel, or even down to just one cell is broken or the wire between the cell on the front side and the cell on the back side that brings the power to the next cell. All of those little issues can cause thermal heating differences. Using a drone can maximize the efficiency in scanning an entire field of solar or an entire roof of Walmart or an IKEA or a Target distribution center that has thousands of panels. Doing so allows you to see the power production over time. It's not so much in the smaller scale, like commercial PV and residential homeowners solar systems right now. Why? Because as they were being sold to the homeowners, they were sold at the best profit margins, the lowest cost. Everybody was worried about, okay, what's the cost for the solar system? What's my return on investment? Not how well is it going to be taken care of and who's taking care of it and who's monitoring it. That wasn't a big point. What they were really talking about was solar makes X amount of power, and this amount of power is going to reduce your electric bills by this amount of dollars. Awesome. But is it going to work forever? This should be 30 years. You don't have to clean them. Now we're finding 5, 10, 15 years later, eh, pollen actually blocks the sun and is sticky. A solar panel that's broken doesn't make as much power. So because the asset owners are now the commercial property owner or the homeowner, it's on them to make that a demand on the front end of their decision making of who they go with for solar, or make sure that if they haven't gotten that done, add that to their system so that they have that maintenance, that monitoring, and the long term taking care of their solar system. There are service companies that are coming out now that there is a demand to repair, replace, and monitor solar systems and make sure that they're doing exactly what was proposed when it was installed years ago. So there is a massive opportunity for service and to ensure that your power plant is operating as it was proposed for the full lifespan of your solar system.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a lot to dive in on here. So the first thing I want to talk about is the actual company themselves. A lot of these guys did like a slash and burn method of capture. And then we saw this, and basically they would go through and they would just sell as many as possible. And I would say, I don't know what the numbers are. You probably know better than I do. 70-80% of those companies don't longer exist. Is that fair?
I would definitely say more than that.
Okay.
I would
All
say
right.
if a solar company is older than 5 years, it's surprising, but
Surprising.
that's part of that's a result of how they're built. And then going through markets and slamming on doors and making like pushing solar, like, hey, you got to go solar, isn't the greatest way to do solar as
Yeah.
far as quality. It may be very big on quantity, but with a lot of quantity also comes a lot of problems if it's not done right. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is that it wasn't, a lot of people have focused on getting as many people to sign up as possible, not on the back end of, okay, how do we take care of what we installed?
Yeah. And I think a lot of homeowners are recognizing the first time they have a problem and they pull out that sheet they got from the sales guy 3 years ago. And now the company line goes to some people in India or something, like there's no actual proper way. They're like, wait, what is this? I don't know what's going on. What do I do now? And they're basically just like, what do you do now? Good luck. Right. So I think there's a whole lot of opportunity in the solar servicing and maintenance side. I know, I've had a lot of conversations about that. So yeah, ton of opportunities. Now, the other thing as well is you brought this up, and it's actually a really good point. And we saw this in surveying. And this is actually the reason why I left surveying. I'm not sure if you guys know this or not, but my company, Blue Falcon Aerial, we are actually the adjunct instructors at Francis Tuttle for a mapping class that is specifically designed for the surveying industry. And it's a 5-week course. It's very in-depth, but there's a really good reason why we are no longer focusing on that market. Because what ended up happening were there were two types of survey firms: the ones who adopted drones early and the ones who didn't. And the ones who adopted drones early, there were the only ones who really had the ability at now to actually do those large acreage captures. And just like you were talking about the wide variance and like the amount of efficiency and time savings and cost savings that drones provided, same exact thing in surveying, right? So to give context, it takes 2 surveying crews 2 weeks to do a mile by mile area in densely forested area. It takes a LiDAR drone about 2 hours. Okay. Like it's just a little bit, right? Just a little bit of detail, right? And so you're talking about all the liability, all the manpower, all the additional equipment, like all this. Like there's so much things that go into this. And so, I mean, we were saving these surveying firms 20, 30, 40, $50,000 for every mile we were capturing. And it was absurd. We are going to see this shift in the roofing and solar side, right? And that's really our focus, is roofing and solar. But we are actively going out there and really trying to force this adoption shift into this industry, these 2 industries, because there's just so much opportunity. And to me, I see the exact same thing that we saw in surveying 5 years ago. It was the exact same way. People were stubborn, and and you would have those conversations, and they were like, "Oh, I don't really, not a huge rush. We'll look into it in like 3 years." And then all of a sudden, the adoption happens, and then all these surveying firms are then scrambling, trying to build up a program. But the guys who were in early and actually adopting early, they had the first mover advantage, and they were already had it in their processes, and everybody else playing catch up.
Yeah. Very much to the beginning of what we were talking about. It goes to why, and really is going to come down to the homeowner, the property owner, caring about why are they doing this system? Why are they looking at a new roof? And what matters most to them? Are they looking at it to be the cheapest thing on the planet? Okay, well then some guy's going to knock on your door.
Yeah.
But if you don't want some cheap stuff up on your roof, and you'll have to buy again in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years, or you're going to have a massive hole replaced because it wasn't done by somebody that understands what they're doing. Those are things that can be high cost down the road. Yeah. But everybody so far, from what I've seen in the last 10 years with solar, is the industry is very much about pushing it out to the homeowners in a mass appeal. And homeowners have been very, very focused on cost, savings, make it as cheap as possible. Well, that costs more in the long run versus having it taken care of as a whole, done the right way the first time, and done by a highly qualified and educated, trained, and certified expert. There are those experts in both roofing and in solar. And a lot of times putting those two things together and allowing them to work synergistically for maintenance and long-term care for your roof and for solar, you have that one place to turn to. Well, that's where I see a lot of these two industries going in the next 5 to 10 years, is a lot of those long-term companies that are focused on the caring for their homeowners and clients and putting the homeowners priorities first versus the dollar. They're the ones that are going to last the longest because they will have the upfront customer base. They will be in the market for the right reasons, the why, and they're going to be there for the long term and service the customer and make sure what they do does what they said it's going to do.
Yeah, and the thing about this as well is like, and I'm not sure if you are, but I certainly am not even saying that using drones and this technology, I'm not even saying it's more expensive. What I will say is it's uncomfortable. It's different, but it's not like I'm not even going to say it's more expensive. It's just something that is not standard, but it takes that innovative leadership to really push that bar and say, what else can we do differently? And we get caught up so much in the roofing, especially roofing, but I know solar is the same way as well. We get so caught up in this is how it's always been done, right? That
Right.
is the mentality we see way too often. And it's just like we can sit there and show them all the highest quality imagery and all the everything and all the new AI software and all the 3D modeling and thermal imaging and yada, yada, yada. And we're like, do you not see this? And they're like, yeah, this is really cool. We're not going to do it, but it's really cool. I'm like, what? Like, I can't even understand, but this is so incredibly common. And it just takes it takes those, it's the early adopters. You have to have those early adopters that see it. And they're the innovators. They're the guys who want to be on the cutting edge and they want to be the leading dominant people in their markets. And that's what we're doing. So like Chris and I, obviously we work together all the time. And like we are looking for those innovative leaders who are out there trying to stay on the cutting edge and really just put the foot on the gas and push. And a lot of times, like we are told, you're too expensive.
A lot of times when talking to specifically as far as thermal drones and drones in general with a solar installer, their process is pretty well oiled. It changes all the time as far as the solar industry. So they got to be pretty fluid and have a solid process. And I get it, but I've always looked at the industry like there's a better way. And adding drones to your process may have incremental little costs, but the overall savings and added profit margins that you have are tenfold because you're not going back 2, 3 times. You're going to have a much more accurate plan set and design, and you're going to be ahead of the curve, literally, both on the electrical side and on the maintenance side of taking care of your customers for the long term. And solar has always been looked at as a single point of sale. Not a lot of people come back. No, there's a lot of people that are now returning to solar companies going, hey, can I add more panels? Hey, can I add a battery? Hey, I'll do smart panels or smart home stuff or energy efficiency. So having this in front of a solar installer is positioning it in more of we're on the same side of where you're coming from. There is a better way to do the process and you make more money. We're trying to do the same thing, but we're not trying to be the scary guy going, hey, you got to buy. And maybe you'll make something that then makes it, oh God, this is a scary thing. I don't know about this.
Yeah.
But if it's a better way to do the same process, you to make more money and get more people on board, quality and accuracy negates the quantity.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the other thing to think about as well. Like put yourself in the eyes of a homeowner. Okay. If you're able to show them a full 3D model of their house with all of these solar radiance fuchsia and everything else, and you're able to show with data and showcase where the sun goes over their house and all of that, like, I don't think it's that unreasonable to just make the connection. Your close rates should be a little bit higher, right? Like you can make that leap, and that should be able to offset any incremental adjustments in your costs. Like it just, I don't know. It's something that's always been a lot of conversation that Chris and I have had, but like it's there. Like it just makes sense for people, and it's just a
It's
lot of
also
people get too
proven.
caught up on like what is it going to cost instead of what is it going to bring to my company, right?
Exactly.
Value
Yeah,
added versus the cost. So
exactly. And I've seen that many, many times, and I've actually done that testing on my side and with a bunch of different solar companies where having that other little value differential puts you ahead of the status quo. Who is the status quo in the solar company, solar industry? It's all those people knocking on your doors, all those people that you see on Facebook and all this other stuff. But if you're the local expert that knows exactly what that area needs and is focused on the homeowner and the property owner first versus trying to make a dollar because they understand in the long term, if they keep selling bad systems, they're not going to keep selling systems in that area. So
yeah.
overall, they're going to end up with more people turning to them, referring their neighbors and their buddies and everybody else to them, which makes their cost of acquisition so much less than trying to have teams and teams of solar door knockers and Facebook ads and all of this other stuff that's out there that has been trash for the market.
Cheapest marketing you can do is referrals, right? That is the most cost effective is people who recommend their friends, family, neighbor because they had a good experience. And this is a great way to start that process of providing that high quality service.
Exactly.